scared of? Tell me. Spiders? Emily Fink? Yeah, one at a time, one at a time. What are you scared of? She's scared of being by herself. The dark. Alright, who's scared of heights? You guys are scared of heights? Alright, here, listen up, be quiet. About a couple years ago, Kristen and I were at her grandparents' house, and they live about 45 minutes away from where we live in Pennsylvania, and they live right on a river. So they have a bunch of boats and like skis and tubes and wakeboards, and her two cousins lived up there with them because her aunt and uncle were building a house. So one time we went up over the summer, and we went out on the boat, we water skied, we were wakeboarding, we were tubing, it was a lot of fun. And then I found out that we could jump off a bridge. And I'm not really scared of heights, I think it's fun. So on the bridge you can jump off two different ways. It's an abandoned bridge, so you can either like shimmy yourself across something like this big, like this, and you got like, it's freaky. I don't like doing that. But you can or you can go 10 feet higher and like climb up, and then you can walk across something like this. So, of course, me and her guy cousin were like, oh, we're gonna jump off the top. And like I said, it's an abandoned bridge, and there's gravel everywhere, we're in bare feet, and there's like a gap between where you have to like crawl over. You gotta like step up, it's pretty high. And he was like 12 years old, so I would climb up and then I would like help him up. So we jump off the top. Krista and her other cousin jump off the bottom. So we're on the water and they're like, you know, I think we're gonna try the top. So we go over there, get out of the water, climb up, we go over. I get up first and I'm helping them all get up. Then we walk across the bridge and we get to the middle. And all of a sudden, her cousin starts having a panic attack. I have never seen someone so scared in my life. She was white as a ghost. She was shivering and just shaking because she was so scared. So we're up there, and I was trying to coax her and be like, all right, we have to jump. Because I'm thinking in my head, I can't get her down. Because like I said, there's a gap. If I try to get her down, and we're wet, so if she slips through that gap, she's gonna hit like the base of the bridge. And I was like, I can't get her down. The only way to get down is to jump. And it's about like 30 to 35 feet, so it's pretty high. But she was so scared. And this is a picture of us sitting up there. She's on the right. I kind of look annoyed in this. I was just sitting, we were up there for like 20 minutes. And I'm just like, all right, I'm getting sick of this, we have to jump. So finally, I'm like, me and Krista are coaxing her, and I'm like, all right, on the count of 3, we'll go. She's like, no, I'm the one that's going to count. I was like, whoa, okay. I was like, you can count. So she says, 1, 2, 3, and we jump. And I'm the last one to jump, because what's going through my mind is I'm like, okay, if all 3 of us jump, and she's stuck up there, she's going to freak out. So I'm like, all right. So I jump last. I look at her, she jumps, I jump last. But the worst thing happens. Here's another picture. I don't know if you can see her on the right. She's starting to turn. And from that high, you don't want to hit the water with anything but your feet. So as she's falling, she's facing the water like this. And she smashed her legs and her butt off that water so hard. And we get in the water and she's bawling. None of us knew what happened until we saw the pictures. And she had a huge bruise on her. It's not funny, I don't know why I'm laughing. But she had a huge bruise. And you know what? She was scared, but she did it, but she'll never do it again. And she's still scared. And we all have fear of something, right? When I asked you guys if you guys were scared of anything, you all said, yeah, I have a fear of something. And a lot of times I feel like we have a fear of failure. I know, I do. I don't like to fail. I like to succeed in everything. And you know what? It's scary to fail to me. And you know, Peter in the Bible is one guy that I look at as like someone who was put in a lot of situations where he wasn't that scared to fail. I'm going to read Matthew 14. All right, there it is. 22 to 33. It says, immediately after this, Jesus made his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples... Alright, too fast. Alright. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble, far away from land. A strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came to them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him, they screamed in terror, thinking he was a ghost. But Jesus spoke to them at once. It's all right, he said. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you by walking on water. All right, come, he said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he looked around at the high waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and grabbed him. You don't have much faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshipped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. Okay, so this is a pretty sweet story. I love this story. I mean, Jesus and Peter walking on water, that's awesome. You know what? I give Peter a lot of props for getting out of the boat. We saw that all of the other disciples were terrified. There was huge waves, there was a ton of wind, and they were terrified to get out of the boat. But Peter's like, you know what? If that's you, Jesus, let me step out of the boat. Tell me to come. And Jesus says, yes, come. So he's walking on the water, and all of a sudden, he gets scared. He sees the big waves, he feels the wind, and he starts to sink. And, you know, whenever they get back in the boat, I mean, what if the disciples would have been like, hey, Peter, what happened there? I mean, you started to sink. And they might have been like, oh, why'd you start sinking? But you know what? I think of it as, at least Peter tried. At least he gave it a shot. And I feel like a lot of times, we don't want to fail, so we don't even try something. Or we don't even give it a shot. And you know, when we don't try something, and when we let that fear of failure be more important, then we don't grow. And this was a great experience for Peter. Can you imagine if Peter wouldn't have done this? He wouldn't have had that great opportunity. And that's a pretty sweet thing. What if someone would have walked up to Peter later and be like, hey, Peter, what'd you do over the weekend? Peter would be like, oh yeah, just walked on water with Jesus. You know, nothing big. You know? That's a sweet thing. That's something that's awesome. But if he would have never tried that, he would have never had that great opportunity. So since he gave it a shot, his life was transformed. And he was able to learn from it. And Jesus was okay with his failure. Jesus wasn't watching him sink, and he's not just like, well, should have had more faith. You know, he wasn't just letting him sink. He said, you have little faith. He reached out, and he helped him. He was okay with his failure because it gave Jesus the opportunity to teach Peter a lesson. And it was such a significant time in Peter's life because, you know, he was probably sitting there thinking, like, you know what? Man, I dropped the ball on that one. I didn't trust in Jesus as much as I wanted to. Like, I'm one of his disciples. I say I'm his follower. But you know what? I didn't have faith. But Jesus, even though Peter failed, he lifted him up. And you know what? Jesus is cool with our failure too. Because we can look at our failure not as a fear. Instead, we should look at it as, how can my life be transformed from it? How can I learn a lesson from my failure? So I think the first thing we should do is ask our questions. How can I grow from my failures? What lessons can I get from it? And why did I fail? I think that's the first thing we should do. Instead of being scared, we should ask ourselves those questions and realize that when we fail, that's when our lives can be molded. And that's when Jesus can take them and be like, you know what? You failed, but you learned from it. And that's how I want to shape who you're going to become. And the second thing I think we should do is that we should replace our fear of failure with faith. And let's face it, when we are scared to fail, it's because we're relying on ourselves. We're relying on our own abilities. We're trusting in what we know. We're trusting in our power. And we're relying on our knowledge. And I am going to be scared to fail if I rely on myself all the time, because I will fail over and over and over again. But when we turn that fear of failure into faith, that's when we can really realize that, you know what? This is me relying on God. I'm relying on God's intelligence. I'm relying on His knowledge. He knows what's best. I'm relying on His power. And I'm relying on His plan for my life. So instead of thinking, I'm really scared to fail, I don't want to try anything, I think we need to change how we view that. Because, like I said, Jesus is cool with failure, and it can really change who you become. The reality is, none of us like to fail. I said I don't. I know none of you do. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try it. We shouldn't be like all the other disciples and stay in the boat because they were scared. I think we should be thinking of how Peter, he still had a lot of faith in God. He still had faith that God would pull through. And that's why he got out of the boat, because he trusted in God. So I want to ask you guys the question of how are you trusting in God with your faith? If you see someone, one of your friends, just really walking away from their faith, or just doing something bad, are you too scared to walk up and say, why are you living like this, all this stuff? Are you scared because they might start to hate you, and that's going to be a failure to you? Or is it more important that you want to help their lives? What are you doing to be like Peter? Because if we don't try anything, we're missing out on a lot. We're missing out on a lot of great opportunities that God can shape and mold who we become. So once again, I want you guys to look at the fear of failure and try things, because it'll shape who you are, and change that fear into faith, because it'll really help you rely on God. And we're going to go in small groups and talk more about what this means and dig deep into it. But I want to pray for you guys right now. Dear God, I thank you for this great